Hello, everyone, and welcome to the East Whittier Middle School Instrumental Music Program House of Horror YouTube channel. Well, I want to get to, you've talked a lot about like your career, how you got to this point. I want to talk a little bit about how you got involved with the East Whittier House of Horror. You might want to explain that a little bit. How did you first get involved?
Okay, well, it's pretty interesting, actually. My wife is friends with the assistant principal of East Whittier Middle School, Peter's wife, Laurel. My wife, Julia, and Laurel work over at Cal High. And back in 2016, I started doing a haunted attraction at our home called the Haunted Rose. And everyone over at Cal High knows about it because my wife, she brings it up in conversation sometimes to the other teachers there. And the teachers have been over to the house. They've seen what we build occasionally. And they know that I go all out for Halloween. Right. So we got on this conversation one summer. We were actually at like a picnic with Laurel and her daughters because her daughters and my sons are friends. And we started talking about East Whittier Middle School and how they do this House of Horrors production for the music department. And I thought that was the coolest thing because I'm a musician. I also play drums and art. And I thought, hey, any program that is going to raise money for some type of creative or artistic program for kids to allow them to explore their creativity, whether it's music or art or anything, and it gives them the experiences to really explore that part of themselves and enable them to do that. I think that's fantastic. So, and then I found out it was for a production that's building haunted houses. I'm like, man, this is like totally my wheelhouse. How do I sign up for this?
Yeah.
And Peter told me about you, and I got in contact with you, and then we started talking, and you got more in the know about kind of my background and what I had done previous to getting involved with House of Horrors, and we started getting really excited about Carnival of Fear. So I'll let you, if you want to talk more about Carnival of Fear, how that developed, and then we can talk about my involvement with that if you want.
Yeah. So, well, let me just go back to kind of how you got involved. So I remember, I think it was like in the end of 2018 where we had just finished up doing the Maze for the Year. And I think you had left a Facebook post saying, I wanted to come by, but I think you had something going on that weekend, but you said, I would love to help out maybe like next year. And I think
I was super involved with haunt season at my house for Haunted Rose. And I think that 2017, I was doing Not Scary Farm as well. So I was double booked. I was doing a lot that season. And I knew that you guys were kind of already in the thick of it, and it was kind of a done deal and on its way to completion at that point. But it was super enticing to me and exciting, the whole prospect of it. So I wanted to leave you a message and introduce myself so we could have like a whole year to talk about it in the future. About getting
and I remember so I was like, I saw, Ryan Banfield was like, then I think I clicked on your Facebook profile and you had the link to like the Haunted Rose. I'm like, Haunted Rose, that sounds familiar. And then I thought back, 'cause my wife and I, we like to go to Midsummer Scream, and we've been going for the past, since I think it first started. And I think it was in 18 or 17. I don't remember the year, but you had your haunt, like a stripped down version of it. At the haunted,
the mini haunt,
yes,
haunt to the Hall of Shadows.
Exactly.
The Maritime Horror.
Exactly. And I remember going through. I'm like, Ryan Banfield is like he does like the Haunted Rose. I'm like, if anybody that's at Midsummer Scream, if anybody has like a mini haunt there, they're legit. I mean, they're legit haunters in the haunt community, and I remember I told my wife that, and I said, I think this guy's a pretty big deal. And then I, looked into a little more. I'm like, and then I think on your Facebook profile, you have all the different places you've worked. And then I knew that you worked at the Haunted Rose. And then I started telling some other people, part of the HOH Core Team, and just other people like why does this guy want to come work with us? He has like so much experience. Like, I was like, it's like the equivalent of like me. I'm a huge basketball fan. That's like if like, somebody from the Lakers comes down, and back when I used to coach, you say, hey, what want me to do, a training session with your basketball players? I'm like, yeah, sure. So it was, I was a bit starstruck, man, when I first met you. You wanted to come on board because, you know, like I have a pretty decent knowledge of like haunt stuff but not to the you know, to the extent of how much you know. In fact, I was joking around with Peter the other day, and you know, Peter and I were talking and came up about the House of Horror, what we're doing this year, and he's like, yeah, he's like, somehow you got brought up, and I think because, like, you know, like you said, your wife and his wife are friends, and then somehow it got brought up about Halloween and stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, so Banfield, he was looking forward to doing the HOH this year, but because of COVID, you know, it didn't work out. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, and then I got brought up. I said, hey, you know, Ryan is like, I like Halloween. Like, I love Halloween. I love all things scary related. Like at East Whittier, like I'm the Halloween guy. But I said, I'm compared to Ryan, no, no. Compared to Ryan is the real deal. So, you know, when you decided to come on board, man, we were super happy to have you. And like, this guy's going to bring us like a wealth of knowledge. And the year, last year at the Carnival of Fear, that was my second year, and we had just transitioned the year before. Like a lot of the old members that were involved with the HOH had left to move on to other projects. So that first year, the year before you came, it was a tough transition, and we did a good job. I felt we did a really good job that year considering, but we were like looking to what else can we do to take this haunt to the next level. And then when you came on board, you helped us you really did help us take the haunt to the next level. I mean, with your knowledge of like, you know, you created our clown facade, which you can talk a little bit about that in a bit. You helped with the facade, which was super awesome. You helped us, you know, get in contact with Joey from Fog It Up, who helped, you know, who supplied like the fog and the lighting, and just your overall creativity, the direction that you wanted for, you know, for the maze, and how you just knew so much about just so many different things. Just really impressed me and impressed everybody that was a part of the program. So if you want to talk a little bit about your experience, your first year working the House of Horror.
Yeah, for sure. I remember initially when I came in, we were doing the first meeting, and I didn't really know anybody except, you know, I knew you because I was introduced, and we had a little conversation prior to me coming down, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any of the team, the parents that were getting involved. Like I didn't really know from like a production standpoint. I was kind of learning things as we went, like as far as going with the punches, as far as how you guys roll out your production and your scheduling, and how you keep everything on track and getting it to the finish line for opening day. And I think there was a lot of things that we were looking at, and like, oh, we could definitely work on the efficiencies with certain things and like amping it up. And we definitely coming in and getting everyone really engaged and like raring to go to put it together. But I have to say right off the bat, one of the most impressive things to me about your guys' production was everyone's passion and willingness. I'm not just talking about like the faculty of the school, but I'm actually talking about the parents and the students and their willingness to do everything they possibly could, and their excitement to make the House of Horrors as professional and as awesome as they possibly could. And I mean, they were going to great lengths to find all the resources that they possibly could to put into it to make the show the best thing it could be. And I rarely work with teams, I mean, outside of like Not Scary Farm. It really, I'll be honest, it did bring a lot of reminiscence to me about like what it was like to work on the Scary Farm crew. It was like anything we possibly could do to get the show off the ground, and if there was a way for an individual to make it happen, they'd bring it to the table, or keep searching until they could find a solution for it. And your guys' team at the HOH, the parents, the students, the faculty members, yourself especially, just the high level of professionalism that you guys put into what outsiders might just look at as, oh, this is just a school event for a fundraiser. It's like the difference is you show up and you go, oh wow, like this is so much more than that. This is just about a legit haunted house that these parents and their kids put together, and the passion really shows in what comes out in the end result of what the production is. So I was really taken aback by that when I really got involved with the program, and just everyone's willingness and passion to put everything they had into it.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I remember one of the first times I think we met was actually at a meeting at Michigan Park. I think it was the core team, and we're presenting ideas about what we're going to be doing this year.
Yeah.
And you came by. I'm like, oh, hopefully he thinks he's coming from all this experience and knots and haunted rows. Like, oh, what's he going to think? But it was super cool when you're like, yeah, this sounds pretty cool. Like, I want to be involved. And we brought you on to be a part of our core team. And I appreciate all the comments you said about our professionalism. Especially when I first started too, like the level of passion. I think you mentioned that earlier. You used the word passion. The level of passion that the parents and the students, put into this fundraising event is just like off the chart. I mean, I've never been a part of any fundraising event like this ever. And I think the level of creativity and ingenuity of some of these parents, so like to come up with these different props and ideas for the room. I mean, people have to understand these are not professional haunters by any means. Like I would say,
I can attest, like most of the parents and the kids don't, I mean, I would say like, 80% of the people working there, probably Halloween isn't even regularly like really their thing. Yeah. It's like they're doing it more to support their kids and for the program. But once they get involved, it's like the creativity just explodes, and they're excited to get involved and dig in any way they can to like just make it happen, because they're just having such a good time with it.
Exactly. And I think even like, we have to try to get volunteers to participate, to, hey, take a room, take a hallway. And it's hard at first because it is kind of be intimidating, especially because a lot of these parents, they know that the bar for the House of Horror is high. And they're like, well, I like Halloween, but I don't really know how to build a haunted house. And I think once, and we kind of talked about this, I've talked about this with a few of the other core team members in our interviews. And one thing that was brought up is what parents that are thinking of, like maybe they're on the fence with volunteering because they think it might be overwhelming. There's a lot of support that gets put in. Like if maybe you may not know how to do something, but somebody else does. Absolutely. And as long as you have that drive and that passion, we can help you. There's people there. Well, I'm not sure how to, like, I have an idea, but I don't know how to build it. I'm not good with like my hands. Or, hey, we got people for that. Like, exactly. Well, or the opposite, we have people that are really good at building props, maybe not so much with the creative, like, coming up with the design, but hey, like I can build that for you. And there's all kinds of different talented people that work in this event. It's really it's a really unique and special group of people. And, last year, the Carnival of Fear, I felt was where we really hit our stride. That was your first year, and that was my second year. And I felt last year we just kind of took things to another level. And one thing I want you to, if you can talk a little bit about, is like the clown facade that you created. What did it like? Can you describe kind of what it looked like, and how did you go about building it?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna leave a little pause like right here in the and then you can interject in the video if you want the picture, if you can. Or,
sure.
But then I'll go ahead and talk about it. So the clown facade, you first came to me and you had this crazy idea. You're like, so I want the guests to enter through a clown's face. And I'm like, yeah. Okay. So I thought about, and he's like, and I would like you to build it, design it and build it. I'm like, okay, I think I can do that. So I went back, literally it was like one night, right? I went back home, I sketched out a sketch of it, and I said, we can go this way with it. I did a design, and then George Zamora did a design. And then we kind of took the ideas of the two and we brought the collaborations together, like the high points of what you liked about each of the designs. And then we established it into one build. And so what we ended up coming up with was a 16-foot tall clown face of that was basically popping out of a clown tent with a giant clown hat on top. And the real challenge with this was like we didn't want to hold back on the size of it. We wanted it to be epic when you walked up to it. So making it 16 foot, it absolutely had to happen. So I really had to start thinking when I did the initial sketch for my design, how do I build this modularly because I knew I had to build it off site because we didn't have anywhere to build at the school, the gym. They wouldn't let us build stuff inside the gym. We had to bring basically stuff built outside and then bring it in. So it had to be built modularly. So I had to look at it and say, how can I take facade panels and make a clown face that you can build up and basically erect in about 10-15 minutes, and it'll be safe, and it'll be safe around guests at 16 feet tall and potential wind and everything else. So I did a sketch, and I basically did this stacked wood panel facade that basically utilized like 3 to 4 panels, 2 upright and then 1 horizontal, and then a tack on clown face that went over the front that basically hid all the seams and made it look like one seamless piece. And then to boot, we had eyeballs in the clown that spun around, and so I added some really cheap fans that I found down at Lowe's, and I mounted the eyeballs on there that look like big pinwheels, and we drilled holes through the facade and mounted the fans, and then the eyeballs would spin around when you turn them on. So it had this really cool animated effect going on with the eyeballs that was very hypnotic looking. And that's what we did. So basically it was myself, it was George Zamora, and a couple other buddies of mine that I pulled together from like the gym that I was going to, and we built it out in the street in front of my house because we just didn't have an area big enough to build this thing. So we'd lay the panels out, we scabbed them together out on the street, laying down on the ground, and then literally we have photos of it. We picked it up, stood it up, tested it there in the street to make sure that the concept would work and it would stand up. And once we were confident with that, we continued on. We did the painting on it and decked it all out, detailed it out. And then we brought it down in like 6 pieces to the school on the back of my truck, and we set it up, rigged it up with like 2 or 3 guys helping to hold it up. We got up there, we screwed it all together and basically strapped it to the front of the gym, and it turned out pretty epic. So it was quite a feat because we did it was fairly turnkey. I mean, it was like 3 to 4 days max, I think, from beginning to end in delivery, because we were getting close to the wire for opening. We had to get that down there and set up and put up. So,
well, I know that ended up being a lot of people's like favorite like prop. I mean, I think just the idea of like before you even get into like the lobby, you're going through a clown's mouth.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's insane, and I think like a nice touch was that you were able to do like make the eyes look hypnotic. You put the fans where the eyes were at, and they just spun around. Plus, I don't know, I'm sure if you explained this, but like there was a light. Remember, we put a light on top of one of like the classrooms, and then a spotlight, and then it was shining on the clown. So since it was at night, the focus was like on the clown's mouth. So and I think we changed it like the light different colors and stuff too. So
Well, I also remember you telling me the reactions because you were super excited. It was like a day or 2 before opening, but you wanted to get the clown head up to kind of get a buzz in the school for the kids. And you were telling me how they were walking by in the hall, and where the head was mounted on the gym, it's kind of in this cutback, like a hallway. So kids walking parallel to that in the halls, when they walk by, they kind of turn and they just see this giant clown head. I was like, oh man, that's awesome. Like they get super excited about it. It's like, dude, there's this huge clown head right in the middle of school. Like, what is this all about?
Yeah, no, the reactions were crazy. Cause like, I know I was like, oh, we have to get this up. We have to get this up. Like at least a few days before the event, because I felt like that was going to be a huge marketing tool, because especially with our haunt, it's just like a fundraiser. Most of the people that come to the event are somehow affiliated with their school. So word of mouth and excitement and hype from the kids themselves, that was going to generate more people to come to our event than no matter how much Facebook advertising we did or anything of that nature. So when the kids were talking about it, and as they were passing by and they see this big old clown head there, and then when the parents are picking up their kids and they see the big clown head right there, I mean, that was the best form of marketing we could have done. And it definitely did not disappoint. It was super impressive, and the kids and everybody that went through the event loved going through the clown mouth. So that was awesome.
And unbelievably, I mean, people will look at that, they go, man, that's crazy. I wonder how much it must have cost quite a bit to get that made. And I think I put the whole thing in all together for under a budget of $100,
Yeah.
and materials that I procured from that I found, or stuff that I kind of already had existing that I had from my own haunt that was left over, and we were able to make that come together on a fairly low budget, but it looked a lot more expensive than it really was.
Yeah, definitely, man. So to kind of talk a little more about the HOH. So what were some of your roles being involved with the HOH? I know you were kind of a jack of all trades, but you want to talk a little
Yeah,
bit about what you did to help us out last year?
well, I think it was discussed early on. When I came in, we had that aside, and I was like, I have a lot I think that I can offer this year, but I'm a little taken aback. Like, where do I fit in, or where do you need help with certain things? And I think you kind of confided in me and said, well, all across the board, I'd kind of like you to help me just look at the program in general, and what we offer for the students and the parents in the organization of it. And if there's anywhere where I kind of saw where we could kind of maybe beef it up a little bit, or edit some things to make it a little more streamlined, that we would go ahead and do that. So I mean, I was pretty much there and involved with every meeting that we had, as far as long as I wasn't working, or if I had a prior commitment that I just couldn't break away from. But I was there helping train the kids for scare acting school. We did a nice little scare actor training for the kids to show them how to scare effectively, and get different types of scares, and also being safe around the guests by not getting too close, or getting into and maintaining a comfort zone for the guests when they're going through the attraction, to addressing the parents and helping explain what we were planning to venture through over the next month, getting it ready and getting the whole thing built, and to facilitating ideas behind where to resource certain materials. Like, if certain parents came up and they had issues, like they wanted like fake cotton candy for their room, or a certain type of prop, and they're trying to find it, helping with ideas of where to source that from, or how to get it very inexpensively, so we could make the HOH look and feel as authentic, and also do it within a very restricted budget, so that we wouldn't go too crazy with it. So in that sense, I was there in the creative capacity, as well as to like help all the different room teams and hallway teams. If there was a certain part that they were stuck on, or they just were having problems getting through it, I kind of would help consult with them on figuring out those issues and coming up with creative solutions on how to get to the end result that they were looking for. But I always made sure that I always wanted to do it in a way that I was empowering them to be the ones that were making the decisions or figuring out the solutions, because ultimately I wanted them to own and have a sense of pride in what they were creating. So I was always very careful I'm not the one to step in and say, like, this is my project, or this is my room, or that I was trying to take like 100% ownership of everything that was going on. I'm just there to be a helping hand. And if I have expertise that I can share and be helpful that way, that's what I was there to do. So there really wasn't, I guess, like in a general sense, I can't say there really wasn't anything that I didn't do on the HOH. I was there kind of for a little bit of everything. And I was very happy to do that. And I think one of the fun parts was, it was like about 2 or 3 of us putting up all the walls in the gym over like a day and a half's time. We really cranked that out. And I know that there was a little bit of nervousness at one point. Are we going to make the schedule? And like, you came back and you were just like blown away because you walked in the gym. You're like, man, you guys are almost done. Like, we're ready to start decorating and put everything in. I'm like, yeah, I told you I don't mess around. We'll get the show done no matter what, and it'll be great. So don't stress about it.
Yeah, I think I came in like at the beginning of the day, or I don't know, morning. I was like, oh, there's not that many people here. It was like you and a couple other people. I'm like, well, I guess you're like, and I remember you reassured me, like, no, we got this. We'll take care of it.
You're like, I gotta go teach. I'll be back in a couple hours. We'll see how we're doing.
Yeah, and I came back and I was like, whoa, like, okay, Ryan is not messing around. He's a man of his word. So that was pretty awesome, man. And you mentioned this a little bit earlier. You had said about how you were impressed with the professionalism of the haunts. You know, compared to like you know, production value, again, you talked about this a little bit, production value, and then just overall, the overall scare factor of the haunt. I mean, how does that compare to like, you know, like a Not Scary Farm? I know it's not the same, but, you know, relatively speaking, how does it compare to like a bigger haunt?
I think in scope and scale, I mean, you guys are right in line with anything that you would, any one maze as far as size wise is concerned and walkthrough size is comparable to anything that you would do either Not Scary Farm or even like Halloween Horror Nights or something like that. You guys take up at least half of the gym, which it's a full size basketball court, professional level basketball court gym, and you take up at least half of that. So it's a very good footprint of an area that you guys are developing out as an attraction. As far as quality of scare and professionalism, I think the passion and the professionalism is just as great as any of the other, being working at from experience working at Not Scary Farm. I think everyone that works there is just as passionate, and maybe in some instances could be a little more passionate about it, because you're talking about people that they don't do that as a regular job. This is something that they're just doing out of the goodness of their heart for their kids, or the students are doing it as an after-school program because it's something safe for them to do outside of being at home with nothing to do, or being out, I don't know, doing something out on the streets with their friends that might get them into trouble or anything. So it's a really good environment for them in that sense. But as far as quality of the maze, I was I was really blown away. Like, there was a whole section I remember last year where we were doing the mirror maze. There was a couple of parents doing a mirror maze
Oh yeah.
section. And I know you and me were talking about it off to the side a little bit. We were like, we weren't sure how great it was going to be because we were limited to certain types of materials that we could get or procure to do an entire, like, basically about 25-foot long walk through mirror maze area. And
Yeah.
these parents, man, the dad was so jazzed about the idea of doing it. He found this reflective mylar that he could put on the wall, and it looked authentic and it had reflectivity. It felt like real mirrors when you walked through. And I was just so taken aback and impressed by how quality that portion of the maze turned out, because it was honestly, in my opinion, it was one of the areas that I was kind of questionable. I'm like, how good will this look when it's all done? And they totally proved me wrong with what was possible. I just was blown away by how great it was.
You know, and that room, I think just that the room was definitely a fan favorite for sure. I remember like guests coming out and talking about, oh, did you see the mirror room? And I remember walking through it, and they had, I mean, obviously they had the Mylar everywhere. Like every part of the wall was filled with like reflective Mylar. And then that mixed with like the strobes that they had
Mm-hmm.
spread out throughout the room, it really was disorienting. I mean, there was multiple times where like guests really were disoriented, and they'd like run into like the Mylar, and the Mylar would come down, and then they'd have to go and staple it back up, and
Yeah,
because it was
yeah,
like so disorienting. And then that
yeah.
also made for like the scares to be really good in that room too, because the scare actors, all they had to like, they almost were like in plain sight sometimes because there wasn't a whole lot of hiding spots, but because it was so disorienting, people are so focused on like trying to like navigate, like, okay, like, whoa, what's going on here? I'm getting tripping out with seeing my reflection. The scare actors would, come out and do their thing, and then boom, they get scared.
Well, I
So I
remember
just,
there was the one area that they built into as a scare, a purposeful scare at the end of one of the hallways of the mirror area, and it catches you off guard because it was off to the side, but they literally shredded the mylar and made a curtain out of it. And
oh yeah,
when
yeah,
it
yeah,
was
you're right.
still and it wasn't blown, if it didn't have any movement to it and it was still, you couldn't tell that it was perforated. You couldn't tell that there was any separation in the mylar. And literally it looked like a performer just jumped out of the wall out of nowhere and was in front of you. And I just thought
Right.
that was it was a very cool and a very effective scare. And it just goes back to the creativity of the parents and um, putting all that effort into coming up with some very ingenuitive scaring with what they developed for the HOH.
Exactly. And before, as I want to talk a little bit about the, your haunt, the Haunted Rose, in a little bit, but one more question before we move on to that.
Sure.
What was your favorite memory working the HOH?
Um, I My favorite memory of working the HOH. I don't want to come off sounding bittersweet at the end about talking about HOH. One of the things that really surprised me, I don't want to say it was like my favorite memory, but what really surprised me too about HOH is all the work and the effort that we put into it. And I could say the same, it's kind of similar working for Scary Farm, but especially with the HOH, because it's only a one night event, is it seemed like it was over before it started. We got in there and we
Yeah.
scared and we had a great time, but literally the whole time that I was in the maze, I don't remember exactly how long we ran the event for. I think it was like a couple of hours probably. I felt like I was in there for 20 minutes. Like I blinked my eyes like 3 times and it was over. And it was it was a little bittersweet feeling at the end. But you know what? Once we were done, we were so pumped for next year. You know, in lieu of everything that's happening this year, we were so excited to see like we were like, man, we did this. What's gonna happen? We were just like, we're ready. We're ready to gun for what's gonna happen for the next year for the HOH. But I guess going back to a favorite memory that I had, I have to just say it comes down to the camaraderie of the team that we had, and it was just such a pleasure working with everybody in the HOH, and everyone bringing their expertise. Like you said, everyone had different solutions and ideas and skill sets that they brought that made the production unique in what it is, and that's really the magic is in the people that put it together.
For sure. And I know, I think, unfortunately, I think you were not able to be there Friday and Saturday, right? I think you had
Yeah,
a wedding or something to go to. So you were only there for
yeah.
Thursday night. But I mean, we really missed it. We would have loved to have you there all 3 nights. But I just, your work did not, your work definitely like paid off all your hard work. I mean, you should have seen the kids there on Saturday night. I mean, they were rolling. I mean, every day the kids just got better at scaring. And with the the scare school that we put on that you helped us with being an instructor there, and it was so a big, it's just such a blast. And unfortunately with COVID, we had to modify. We're still having a version of the HOH, which if I have a chance I'll talk about it later. But hopefully next year we can bring back a version of it. It may not be the exact same, but something of that nature where the people can actually go through an actual haunt. So we'll see what happens. But that's awesome, man. Well, let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about your event that you're going to be putting on October 30th and 31st, the Haunted Rose. As I mentioned earlier, Ryan, he does it since 2016, I believe. He's been creating a home haunt at his house for trick-or-treaters and people that enjoy haunted attractions or just love Halloween in general. So Ryan, go ahead and talk a little bit about your haunt that you're going to be putting on this year.
Okay. So the Haunted Rose is a haunted attraction that I've been operating since October 2016. That was our debut year. And it's based off the Gothic classic literature of cosmic horror literature of H.P. Lovecraft and other authors of classic Gothic literature from that time and that era. So it's got a very kind of old Victorian, very classic horror element to the theming of it. It's very detailed. There's a lot of Easter eggs built into the sets and the decor that we have for the attraction. It's located at my home at 12116 Groveland Avenue in Whittier. So if you guys don't have anything going on for Halloween this season, definitely come by and check it out. It'll be operating Friday and Saturday night, October 30th and 31st from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Now, each year we've kind of done a unique theme with it. In 2016, it was established as kind of a multi-element H.P. Lovecraft themed storyline where a mad scientist opened a portal in his mortuary that whisked you away to these fantastical worlds of horror that waited you on the other side, and you went through many different environments. There was a town full of fish people. We had a swamp area with ghouls. We had a big full-size cave with zombie miners and all kinds of stuff inside of it, and you exited through this giant mine shaft back out into the neighborhood, and it was just like this big reveal. You came out like, whoa, I just went through all that. And then in 2017 we came back and established more of the fish people town thematic and really took off from H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Shadow over Innsmouth, and we created the Haunted Rose Presents the Maritime Horror. And it was a walkthrough of the town of Innsmouth that's populated by this fishing village town of people who cultivated gold from the ocean and were cursed by the god Dagon from the ocean for taking the gold. And in exchange for smelting the gold down and making idols for Dagon, they were given eternal life by being changed into half person, half human, half fish people. And so it was a lot of fun. It was really well received by the haunt community. The very first year, our debut year in 2016, we took Best Home Haunt of Southern California from Creepy LA and just had huge reviews from everyone. A lot of local media came down, and we were just taking like 5-star reviews all over the place. And when we won the award from Creepy LA, which we weren't expecting, it was really surprising because we were going up against other haunted attractions out there that have been operating in the LA and Orange County area for 25 plus years, and we just didn't know we were up for an award. And when we won for the year, we were just really surprised and taken aback and very humbly excited about that. So this year, and then we ended up taking a year off because me and my wife were having our second child, and a lot of people were pretty vocally bummed about that, the neighbors and a lot of people that are fans of the attraction. So we took a year off to have our newest son, and then once that all simmered down, we came back in 2018 or 2019 with Carter's Crypt, which was a takeoff of H.P. Lovecraft's The Statement of Randolph Carter, about an explorer who goes into a crypt in the middle of a swamp, goes underground into this crypt, and he finds ghouls, cannibalistic ghouls that are feasting off the bodies in the graveyard. And so that was a really cool pop-up haunt that we put together at the very end of the year in about a few weeks' time, and it was really well received too. So this year we're bringing it back to the classic location here in Whittier, and it's the Haunted Rose Presents The Color Out of Space, which is about the Gardner family farm, and a meteorite crashes on their farmland and seeps into the ground and into the well water, and it starts affecting all the animals and the plant life around the farm and changing it and transforming it. It even affects the family and starts to make them go crazy. So what we're doing is a COVID-safe theatrical display in the yard where we're going to have live performers interacting with the guests, and the guests will be able to stand in socially distanced, spaced areas around the front of our house and on the sidewalk and view the show for about 5 minutes. And it'll be in 5-minute intervals that will rotate. So every 5 minutes we'll restart the show so different groups of people can come by and watch. And the neighborhood is going to feature trick-or-treating both nights. We're planning to have the Hawaiian shaved ice guy come down and be in the front. And then I'd also like to let everyone know that Friday night, the 30th, we're planning to have a hearse show here in the street in front of the attraction. So we'll be having hearses show up and actually do a hearse night here. So if you're out there and you have a hearse or even a classic car and you want to bring it by Friday night and have a good time with your friends, trick-or-treating and get some shaved ice, and just have a blast, come by Friday night. And then if you just haven't had enough and you want to come back again, come back Saturday and have Halloween 2 nights in a row.
That sounds fun, man. I'll be there Friday night for sure. I'm going to definitely go and check it out. So yeah, there's something to do, and I like how you're keeping everything COVID safe. I know you've talked about how your main priority to keep everybody safe, and you got social distance markers out there for people to stand. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, we'll have the cordon off. We're going to ask everyone that is going to view to please be respectful of everybody, in their space, socially distancing, but also making sure to wear a mask while they're viewing the show. So. Awesome.
And that was October 30th and 31st of this month. So Ryan, it was a pleasure talking to you today.
Absolutely.
And hopefully that people who are watching this got a lot of cool insight with somebody who's been very involved with the haunt industry, and and the best is yet, and there's more to come. I mean, we're looking forward to next year and beyond. So again, Ryan, thank you for being here. And until next time, everyone, take care and have a good one.
Have a great Halloween season, everybody.
You too. Happy Halloween, everybody.